What's up, Fantasy Champions? Spotlight Sports Network is excited to tell you about an amazing deal from Thrive Fantasy, your place for daily fantasy sports and esports. Right now, with promo code SS Network, Thrive Fantasy will match up to $50 of your first deposit. So go to thrivefantasy.com and sign up now with promo code SS Network. That's thrivefantasy.com, promo code SS Network. Do you like the Oakland A's? Are you a fan of the Golden Knights? Do you love the Los Angeles Chargers? Well then, my friend, you're in the right place. This is the Snake Sports Talk Show with your host, Jake the Snake SIlva, brought to you by the Spotlight Sports Network.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are live in the 702 in Las Vegas. This is the Snake Sports Talk Show on the Spotlight Sports Network. We're live on all platforms, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch here on a Wednesday, and I hope all of you guys are having a great evening as we're back at it with sports. NHL free agent frenzy absolutely had me mind blown because there was just absolutely a lot of moves. I don't even think Pierre LeBrun and a lot of these hockey analysts could even keep up with the amount of posts that were put up. It wasn't just one or two contract signings in free agency. It was an absolute truckload. Like, you know, you get a dump truck and it just massive amount of contracts. Every single one, everybody's on the move. Everybody's either, staying put or a lot of them are on the move. But it was just drastic with that much contracts thrown out there. But, it's fun. It's fun with stuff like this. So of course, as we mentioned, we're here on the Spotlight Sports Network, and you guys can catch me all over Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, all sorts of places. Man, I am very excited for tonight's episode, and like I said, we're going to be digging into a lot of it, hockey stuff. We're going to be digging into a lot of different things here and there, but let me just start out with this, because we've been talking about it Monday night, and we've been talking about it ever since. And again, we have to come back to the same organization that now it's push comes to shove moment. The Green Bay Packers, as we mentioned right now. We know we've been talking about Aaron Rodgers' return. But here's the other thing that right now you could just kind of smell the desperation mode of why the Green Bay Packers cannot fail this year. They cannot fail. Aaron Rodgers took a hiatus, went vacationing. I mean, he went everywhere. Then had the golf tournament. And he was doing all that Aaron Rodgers does. And at this point, Green Bay was not budging. They have Jordan Love, but a lot of scouters and a lot of people have said either good or bad things about Jordan Love, whether he would be ready to be at the NFL level. And what's really interesting, like this has got to be the utmost oddity I've ever seen in a relationship between Green Bay and Aaron Rodgers. Because here's the thing. Aaron is a NorCal guy. He's all about California. Okay, Cal Berkeley. And people projected him to being one of the top 10 picks in the draft. The second that he gets into the draft and then falls down. And Green Bay made the decision of going and getting Aaron Rodgers. And from what we were told, they didn't necessarily need him, but they took him. And Brett Favre was on the tail end of his career before retiring, coming out, going to the Jets, semi-retire, and then go right to the Minnesota Vikings until officially retiring out of the NFL. You kind of notice a little bit of something here with this organization. Because, again, however you look at this relationship, I mean, it's odd. I can't keep up with it. I don't really know who really to blame, and I don't really know who really to trust. Because Green Bay is a small-town organization. That's who they are. They love their fans, and at the same time, they're not really a free agent frenzy destination. They're not. You do, however, build upon your core. These are a lot of youngsters who grow in this system and they just get better. Aaron grew in this system. Devontae Adams grew in this system. Aaron Jones grew in this system. Lots of them. And you look at where they sit now. And Green Bay hadn't won a title since 2010. They've only been to one Super Bowl in Aaron Rodgers' era. Could have gone to a second, but they were knocked out in the first round of the playoffs. So, however you look at this relationship, and I'll just tell you this, by the end of this year, this is going to look like Green Bay's downfall. Aaron's not happy, and he's not budging, just like Green Bay isn't. He's going to leave after this season. The reason he even shows up for minicamp is because he's, one, doing his due diligences to protect his character and his reputation. Because we all like to think it's arrogant Aaron at the podium. But you could tell from body language, the way things were kind of perceived, very well done professionally from Aaron. And you know behind that he's done. He's not going to be coming back to Green Bay. He's finishing up this contract and he's done. You have to think about the relationship between him and Devontae Adams and what they've grown for years. It's unexplainable. And it's one you cannot compare to others. Because Devontae Adams, I know a lot of people don't care about this. I certainly don't, because it's Madden. It's a video game. But Devontae Adams is in the 99 club. He's at it again. Back-to-back years. And you think of the duos between them. That's unbreakable. And to see this right now with Aaron Rodgers and with this organization, you already know where this is headed. You already know where how this relationship stands. The fact of the matter was, you couldn't get a promising wide receiver, which, by the way, they go and they acquire Randall Cobb. They get Randall Cobb back. Why? I know they're trying to make Aaron happy, but you're kind of moving backwards with moves like this. Because here's the thing, you got Amari Rodgers from Clemson, who was Trevor Lawrence's favorite target out of all the other targets that he's had. I mean, we don't even know exactly if he could really compete in the slot position. In his rookie year, we'll have to see. And you've got a whole year for Aaron to really build this thing. But in the end, it's going to be the same. It's going to be the same situation. Aaron's not returning to Green Bay. He's not. He made it very clear, very professional, and the way that it was spoken was so well done. I mean, dear Lord, I really wish that certain PR groups would take notes, because that is how you would address something. Honestly. But Green Bay's not budging, neither is Aaron Rodgers. And by the end of the year, Aaron Rodgers is as good as gone. All right, this was something I really wanted to get my reaction into because I think that this is very, very important. I'm not speaking about this because, one, this is my hometown team. But I'm speaking about this because this has burned a relationship. And a relationship that started since the expansion and establishment in year one. The Vegas Golden Knights traded away Marc-Andre Fleury to the Chicago Blackhawks, which, understandable. There's a reason teams, and here's the thing, companies innovate all the time. And sometimes relationships, if the relationship's not going in the right direction, where the two of you are not building together, sometimes it's best to speak upon it, go about each other's ways, and you do it in the best way possible. I'm not saying you got to be best friends with them after a breakup. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is you guys are mutual. You're mutual friends because, number one, you believe it's not going anywhere. But you respect the fact that the both of you want the best for each other. Companies, they part ways with a lot of employees all the time, and they innovate all the time. But the best way you do it, honestly, is by a shake of hands, mutual agreement. Thank you for everything that you've given for me and provided me. And you move from there. The Vegas Golden Knights, since year one, Marc-Andre Fleury was the absolute centerpiece of this organization and who was the absolute cornerstone of the birthplace of the organization. That's who he was. We all remember the years in Pittsburgh. 3-time Stanley Cup champion. Was also a very competitive goaltender when it came to playoffs and even in the regular season. But playoffs was where it mostly stood. And he played amongst great players. Evgeny Malkin, Sidney Crosby, Phil Kessel, Ryan Dumoulin. There were a lot of players he played around with, even TJ Oshie, and so many others. There's a long list. And these were very competitive Pittsburgh teams. And the second Pittsburgh introduced Matt Murray, it changed. It changed the way, the look in the face that the Pittsburgh Penguins were going to be going through after this. But they knew Sidney Crosby was the centerpiece. But either way, Fleury was part of that core. And the second Fleury was not on his A game, they bring in Matt Murray, and then they win back-to-back titles in 16-17. And then Fleury, not sure where the journey road gets to him, finds a home in Vegas. The very first pick in the expansion draft, Vegas takes him. And I've met Marc-Andre Fleury. I've met him in person. I met him the first year of the Golden Knights Fan Fest. Great guy. Very humble and very professional like. This is the guy that you tie your tie, you look good in a sharp suit, you're playing everything professionally. I mean, that's the way that hockey really is with some of these gentlemen, these individuals. But when I look at this is 4 years in the making. They're going into year 5. The last thing you want to do is not inform him that he got traded off. That is the last thing you ever want to do. Very last. Not even do it all. And right now, the Golden Knights upper management is getting an awful lot of heat from this. Kelly McCrimmon, George McPhee, and even Bill Foley. Now, who knows what the rest of the conversation is going to look like? Because you have to think about it. The time when they got Robin Lehner or when they got Pete DeBoer. I mean, there were images of backstabs to Fleury. But all of this came out through the agent. And we initially pointed at the agent during the playoffs. And that was kind of how things were, because if this news got out in the playoffs, Vegas is not playing any better. Now they've got such a distraction in front of them that they can't win playoff games. This is why it was the wrong time and place to do it. Honestly, what's going on, Neil, and what's going on, Cincinnati crew? I appreciate all of you guys. But this is why that I look at this. Marc-Andre Fleury, you already know, is a first ballot Hall of Famer. That is not changing just because he wins the Vezina Trophy. You know, it's the first one in his career, and I'm happy for him that he got it. But when you disrespect someone that you don't even inform him, not even his family, that you're getting traded, that breaks a relationship. That breaks a bond. Think about how business would be. If let's say I go into work tomorrow and out of nowhere, no phone call, not even a meeting, not nothing. They're just basically saying, "Oh, you're fired." But we get no, no, you're fired. I get no reasonable explanation. Now I know if firing is a firing. And sometimes when it comes to managers, it just carries out that way. That's honestly just how sometimes some of those businesses work. But in this particular scenario, you don't just go automatically and say how much that you love someone when it comes to a relationship, and then all of a sudden you just drop the ball and just say, "Oh yeah, we're done. We're broken up." Why? Sometimes it comes with that confusion. You mentally invest in someone, and someone actually feels a piece of you, and then just right then and there. Fleury fit a piece in Vegas. He fit an absolute tender piece in Vegas for 4 years since day one. And he shaped the way that Vegas has looked. People love Fleury. People love what he's done. Even Pittsburgh Penguin fans, yes, it was bitter they lost him to the expansion draft. And they're looking at themselves like, why the hell did the Penguins let him go? But we're so happy for him because of how happy he was. That's the reason sometimes you get Penguin fans that are Fleury fans. I see them all the time here in Vegas. They love Fleury. They don't care if he's a Penguin or a Golden Knight or a Chicago Blackhawk. They don't. They love Fleury for Fleury. He's energetic. He's funny, goofy. He's the type of leader. So I was very disappointed in the Vegas PR department because this is absolutely ridiculous. How could you not inform Fleury about being traded? How is he going to explain this to his family? How are him and his agent really going to go about this? At the end of the day, I know a lot of people are probably going to think, because a lot of the news leaks out of, well, he doesn't want to play in Chicago. And then what Vegas tries to get back, the player doesn't even want to go to Vegas. He wants to stay in Chicago, but pay him a salary. You put this upon yourselves. And yes, you pay the price for decisions you make. It's called life. You either pan this out right, make it better, or you just continuously stir the pot and it's never going to get better. It becomes an absolute chaotic storm. And where you burnt bridges, you burnt the relationship. And I thought about this morning. How are the players within the organization going to feel? Because now you're on the spotlight. You are on the spotlight. So, wow. This is going to take a lot of time. This is going to take a lot of adjustment to really clean this mess up, huh? Unbelievable. What's going on, Mello? You think the A's will end up? Absolutely. The A's, like I've heard about the city council meeting out there in Oakland. Oakland said no, so the A's are going to end up in Vegas. They're going to end up in Vegas. I mean, Oakland's really disappointed a lot of the teams. Golden State's now more up north with San Francisco. They're San Francisco's property. You got the Raiders now here in Vegas. They're Vegas property. And I do feel like that the A's are going to end up in Vegas. Because where else are you really going to go? You're not going to end up going into, like, Nashville, or you're not going to end up in Nashville. You're not going to end up you're not going to end up in some of these places. So I think the best thing to do, honestly, to keep in the West Coast and to keep that region, and not to mention some of those relations, is just come to Vegas. Better market, boosts up your caps, boosts up more money to go and get bigger players. So, but yeah, I was absolutely livid, because it's not just the Golden Knights. That could be any team in the NHL. How can you not, how could you not inform someone like this? And like I said, that's like basically saying that you're firing an employee for no apparent reason, just because you feel like it. Or you're basically breaking up with somebody, whether it's him or her, for no apparent reason after you just had a deep heart-to-heart conversation. You both have like absolute strong feelings for each other, and then it's just you drop the bomb. I don't understand this. This is going to take a lot for Kelly McCrimmon and them to clean this up, but I was absolutely disappointed with the PR. I really, really was. That's unbelievable. Coming up next, since it kind of got me worked up for hockey, I'm going to do a special here. So we had free agent frenzy today, and there still are more talks of more contracts and more trades in the hockey realm. I'm going to do a fun thing here on the show. It's called Trend Up or Trend Down. And you're going to hear it from all of the 32 NHL clubs who I truly feel like are on the trend up or the trend down side. These are with all these moves. The draft's already over. There are still some free agent pieces, and there are still some trades up for grabs. But I look and I evaluate a lot of these moves. It took me a little of time, but I'm going to discuss it here coming up after this break. All right, so all of our fantasy, our absolute fantasy players out there, far and wide, coast to coast. You guys love fantasy play, and you guys also love winning cold hard cash. Thrive Fantasy is the absolute home for that. Not just for all sport fantasies, but also for esports fantasy. All of our hardcore gamers about there. And esports, they got a special coming up for the NFL in week 1. You can be winning up to $100,000 in prizes. And that's by putting in those $20 deposits when you first sign up online, or going to the Google Play or App Store on your mobile device, and you sign yourself up. But when you do, before you do, and put in your $20 deposit, use promo code SS Network as a little thank you gift, because that also matches up for Thrive Fantasy to give you $50 into your first play instead of 20. So how about that? You get more play. Instead of 20, you get 50. So definitely check it out here at thrivefantasy.com. Use promo code SS Network and start having some fun in fantasy play today and win cold hard cash. thrivefantasy.com, promo code SS Network.
Welcome to the My City, My Game pod show featuring Raider J77, your place for all things Raiders and all things Trailblazers. Brought to you by the Spotlight Sports Network. Make sure you like, subscribe, and hit the bell for notifications. Now let's go.
But I know that's just in my mind. I know everything is just in my mind. Do you really want to be famous? Do you really want to be a superstar? Do you really want to get dangerous? Do you even know where the groupies are? Bitches out here
Welcome Hamler's house.
Once a Raider, bruh, always a Raider, bruh. Shit simple as that. You look silver and black. Lot of bread invested in that O-line. Car insurance cost the arm and the leg to reach that goal line. It's go time.
Oh, I'm going to tell you right now, all of these moves, I tell you right now, like, the NHL has absolutely just been wild and rampant all throughout today, and it's only just getting better from here. Jake the Snake Silva here from the Snake Sports Talk Show live. And, yeah. Like I mentioned before, I mean, there were an awful lot of big time, just big time names, and we're going to break every single one of them down. So I really do think that some of these moves, I mean, you kind of see where it's going. But there was an awful lot of these contracts. And it wasn't like it just happened contract after contract after contract. No, this was absolutely unloaded off a dump truck. That's just how all of these contracts managed. But I was really excited and happy of free. Like, it's so much fun on free agency. It really, really is. So I'm going to do a special here, at least on this segment, called Trend Up and Trend Down. And of course, afterwards, at the bottom of the hour, you have my AFC South prediction for the NFL and so much more. So I figured we'd play this one because I think we kind of get a sense of a lot of these teams and after all of these moves. So I like it. I truly like all of these moves, and I do think a lot of it has to deal with contract issues and stuff like that, and so much more. So let's go ahead and we will start with our trend up, trend down, NHL edition, all 32 teams. Here we go. So first and foremost, the Anaheim Ducks. Okay. They're basically trending down. The reason that I say that Anaheim is just in this point, because first of all, they are in rebuild mode. We already know this. They just re-signed Ryan Getzlaf to a friendly deal. And again, I just really think that the Anaheim Ducks are not going to be as competitive in that Pacific Division. They're going to be a team that's going to probably finish last again. But accumulate draft picks, get better on your offense, get a little bit better up on the defense. I just really think John Gibson is on the tail end of his career, and who knows what the Ducks will be in for the next couple of years. All right, so the Arizona Coyotes. I think the Coyotes right now, they're kind of on a downward. They are definitely on a downward spot. So I'm trending down for Arizona. They just signed Antti Ranta to a 2-year contract out of Carolina, or actually they lost Antti Ranta. They went and got themselves Carter Hutton from Buffalo. I don't understand this move. I don't understand what Arizona's doing, but I do know that they're in a big-time punishment for like the next couple of years. Because Antti Ranta goes to Carolina for 2 years. They lose Darcy Kemper in a trade to go to Colorado. And not to mention they lose Connor Garland and Oliver Ekman-Larsson, which honestly, it was more about Garland than anything else. And Oliver Ekman-Larsson had a terrible year. And right now, Arizona's they're just kind of chipping away at this whole thing. They're absolutely chipping away. I don't see Arizona really being competitive this year, so I have trend down. The Boston Bruins. You know what? This is a trend down for me. Wow. What is going on? So, first of all, they move on from Tuukka Rask. They also moved on from Jaroslav Halak. And they also moved on from another goaltender of theirs. So 3 goaltenders are gone. And the only one that they really slipped away was Linus Ullmark. I don't know how Linus Ullmark is really going to pan out because Buffalo, they let him walk. And I think he's a good goaltender, just not as solid. I don't know what's in the cards for Boston, but here's the thing that I do think they did right. They got more offensive guys. Eric Haula, Tomas Nosek, and Nick Foligno. Now, Foligno adds in a little bit more. He adds in a little bit more juice. Now, they did re-sign Taylor Hall, which he loves being there in Boston. I think he really reshaped his career the second he went to the Bruins after coming off of Buffalo. Got better. Derek Forbort added extra defense, but I'm not sure how I'm going to look at this goaltending. And they do lose Sean Corrali. So where exactly is the trend right now for Boston? I'm not sure where. I'm not exactly sure where it's going. But Linus Ullmark is a 28-year-old, has a lot of growing to do, but I'm not sure. I just have them at a slight downward trend, but I'm sure Boston will figure this thing out. The Buffalo Sabres. Okay, Buffalo made a lot of different moves, and right now I just see them at a downward trend. They are losing a lot of people. Jeff Skinner didn't even have a good enough year after that contract extension for 8 years. They're going to lose Jack Eichel in the middle of this trade as well because he's right now the hot commodity. But you do have Victor Olofsson, and you also do have a couple of other people, Rasmus Dahlin, and a couple of them that you could grow around. But after all of this, they lost an awful lot of people. Jake McCabe going to Chicago. I thought Jake McCabe was actually pretty decent. But after all of this, I don't know what they've got in store. They get Craig Anderson as a goaltender. I don't know. This is a downward trend for me for Buffalo. It's not getting any better. They promised it the second they got Taylor Hall and a couple others. It didn't work. Try this thing again. So downward trend for me. All right, Calgary Flames. So I'm going to tell you this right now. This is actually, believe it or not, kind of a slight upward trend for me, for Calgary. Let me explain to you why. First of all, you have Jacob Markstrom and a long-term contract as goaltender. He's set. You go and get Blake Coleman for 6 years. Now, it is a big-time contract. You still have Johnny Gaudreau. You still have Sean Monahan. And you also have Elias Lindholm. So I am very curious to see what Calgary's next move is going to be because they got to get aggressive on offense. That I think was the biggest need for them, but they did lose a couple of other pieces in the middle of this. But as the way things have been trending for Calgary, they're actually on a slight upward. They're getting better offensively. They're looking like they're going to be aggressive, but at the same time, you lost Mark Giordano. I think Giordano was kind of right there on the tail end of his career. He's going to have maybe 1 or 2 more solid years, and then he's going to call it quits, being to Seattle. But ultimately, the defense has to get a little better, but I think it's a slight upward trend for Calgary for me. Carolina Hurricanes, they are on a downward trend. What in the world happened? Because Peter Mrazek, he's gone. He's going to Toronto for 3 years. They just traded away Alex Nedeljkovic to it's hard to pronounce it, but he goes to Detroit. And wait till you see what I have for Detroit. But they also lose Dougie Hamilton. This is a complete blow up here. This is a complete blow up for the Carolina Hurricanes. Now they did get Ian Cole and they got Tony DeAngelo. Fine. They get some good defensemen. But Frederik Andersen for 2 years and then Antti Ranta on top of all that, I don't know what trend that Carolina is really putting themselves in. This is downward because now they're losing Dougie Hamilton, big part of their defense. They've also they've extended Jordan Martinook, but now they need to get better. They need to get some better offensive guys as well because they even lost some pieces. But goaltending is the biggest trend for me. And Carolina, they say that they were on a quote unquote win now moment. This isn't moves that you make that says win now. Peter Mrazek was still at his age, and I understand with injuries, but you also had Alex Nedeljkovic, who was also, I thought, was really solid. I don't understand what Carolina's doing. They're a downward trend for me. Okay, the Chicago Blackhawks. They are surprisingly going into a upward trend. Now, I'm not going to say this because of Marc-Andre Fleury. But look at some of the trades that they made. They dumped away Duncan Keith. Finally, old expiring contract. Get it out of here. Caleb Jones, 24-year-old defenseman, and only getting better. That was an upgrade for me. And also, you get on top of it Jake McCabe for defense, and you get Seth Jones. That was one of the biggest moves from Chicago. You get rid of an older defenseman who's already past his prime and get a younger defenseman in Seth Jones, and he's right there playing with his brother, Caleb Jones. And then not to mention, they were making some interesting moves on the offense. The offense, I believe, is going to get a little better, but they still got some moves to make. But they are on an upward trend right now. Now, who knows what's going to happen with Marc-Andre Fleury and their goaltending? That's the biggest priority. Now, we don't know whether or not it's going to depend on how Marc-Andre Fleury really feels with this. So I've got Chicago on the upward. Okay, after I just got this news with Colorado is kind of they're on the slight downward trend. What the hell? Okay, first and foremost. Now, I know Jeremy Case, who's a diehard Colorado Avalanche fan, but he's also loving the Seattle Kraken. I know he was kind of concerned with this because, first of all, Philip Grubauer gets a big-time contract with the Seattle Kraken, and then you're also losing – you also pick up Darcy Kemper from Arizona. For what reason? Because I also do know that they've got Francouz from, on their end, but this is interesting to me. Plus, they also get Devin Dubnyk. I don't understand what this goaltending trend. Now, Darcy Kemper, as I said before, is a good goaltender, not a great one. He still has a lot of work he's got to do. But you have to think about some of the names they've lost. Patrick Nemeth, they lost him. They lost, there's a lot of different trades that they've been making, but keeping themselves within the salary cap. It's a slight downward trend for me. They're still going to be a solid team because that offense, you're not breaking away from Gabriel Landeskog. They gave him a brand new contract at 8 years. You have Nathan McKinnon, and you also have Mikko Rantanen. So they still have some real good pieces. But how is this goaltending going to get any better? I'm not sure. I'm not sure what we're going to see out of Darcy Kemper this year. So the Columbus Blue Jackets, this was kind of interesting to me. I don't know truthfully how I feel about this, but they did get Sean Corrali for 4 years on their center. They needed to have somebody who was a capable passer and a guy that's going to open up the offense. They needed to make that happen. They did re-sign Patrick Laine to a contract, and they do have their up-and-coming goaltender as well, who's really, I think he's going to be on the upwards end. Because, listen, Columbus to me is one of those strange organizations that they just pull something out of the rabbit. So I'm kind of 50-50 with them. Again, these are young guys. Now, I don't know if they're up on the trends of really rebuilding themselves and getting better because they did lose Seth Jones, but they still have Zach Werenski. They still have a couple other pieces that they could really rally around. But who knows if that will really up the trend. So they're 50-50 with me. Could be on a slight word down, could be on a slight word upward trend, but we can only figure that out on the coming days. All right, the Dallas Stars. So the Dallas Stars are kind of they're 50-50 for me, but slightly on an upward. Now, here's the thing. They lose Jamie Alexiak to Seattle on the draft, and not to mention they lose him for 5 years. But they also pick up Ryan Suter. Now, they bought out his contract. Minnesota did. And Dallas comes in and they give him a 4-year deal, 36-year-old defenseman. I'm not sure what this is looking like, but they still do have John Klingberg. They were trying to make a move for Seth Jones. Didn't make it, they didn't make it happen, but that's okay. They still have some good defensemen up out there. And not to mention this offense, you still have Joe Pavelski, Tyler Seguin, and Jamie Benn. Now, they did get Braden Holtby at goaltending, but you do have Anton Khudobin. That's why it's kind of 50-50 for me with the Dallas Stars, because sometimes they could pull something out that we've never seen before. And who knows what that may be and how that this is going to really work out for them in the near future. But Dallas, I think, has one more year of this thing. However that they're going to pan this out, but they're 50-50. I can't say much. So we'll see where it pans out for this year. Detroit Red Wings. Now, you're going to be surprised, but they are on the upward trend. Pius Suter, and they also do get Alex Nedeljkovic for John Bernier from Carolina. This is actually bringing up some really good smiles for Dylan Larkin, because they go and get a couple of good offensive players. They retain a couple players. The other thing is, this is with Nedeljkovic, he's going to grow with this organization. John Bernier did not really do much. He didn't do much for goaltending. This is actually going to be a lot better. And Pius Suter, here's what's interesting: a 25-year-old center. This is what's really going to work for this organization. And Dylan Larkin's liking what he's seeing. They're going to get aggressive offensively. Defense is going to be questionable, but Steve Yzerman knows what he's doing with this organization. He's going to make it better, going to make it more competitive, and it will take some time. But I guarantee you, in the next 2-3 years, Detroit's going to be back on the map of being a competitive organization again. I guarantee it. The Edmonton Oilers. What in the world are they doing? first and foremost, you had me at Ryan Nugent-Hopkins extension deal. You also have me at Zach Hyman getting an absolute ridiculous deal at 7 years. And then but here's the downfall. You lost Adam Larson to Seattle. You make a few more trades on top of all that. You lose Ethan Bear in a trade. And you're trying to get better players, but here's the other thing that really makes no sense. Why do you have Duncan Keith and you didn't ask Chicago to retain most of their salary? That's a guy who's 38 years old, not getting any younger. His best days are behind him. He's already won 3 Stanley Cups with Chicago. Why take on that contract? And worst of all, you let go of Caleb Jones, a young 24-year-old that's only going to get better. I don't understand that move. And the other move I never understood was Mike Smith. You had Peter Mrazek, you had Philip Grubauer, and you had a bunch of other goaltenders that you could have settled with, because this is a team that needs to get competitive for the playoffs. I mean, I don't understand this. And the defense, you get Cody Ceci, which who knows how he'll pan out. Tyson Barrie had a better improving year, but I need at least another year to prove that he could be solid at defense. I loved what I saw out of Darnell Nurse this year, but let's face it, Edmonton was on a downward trend. The second I saw that they extended Mike Smith, I don't get it. I really don't get it. All right, the Florida Panthers. So this is interesting for you, but they lost a couple pieces. They lose Keith Yandel to the Flyers, which he's 35 years old, kind of on the tail end. And they lose Chris Dreiger. Now, that's going to be interesting to see how the goaltending really shapes themselves up. But like I said, you have a solid goaltender in Sergei Bobrovsky for years. Alexander Barkov is only going to get better. Same with Jonathan Huberdeau. I think, honestly, Florida kind of look a little bit mediocre, but I put 50-50 on them. I have to see at least a little bit more moves out of Florida to really consider them to be an upward trend. I mean, they're kind of back and forth with this. They're kind of stabilizing themselves. So I have it 50-50 right now. No upward or downward trend. All right, the LA Kings. Now, I did say people need to watch out for the LA Kings because they made a lot of different moves. Now, they, of course, get Alex Edler for defense. They just signed Philip Deneau for 6 years as their top-notch center. What are they doing right? This is a slight upward trend. What are they doing right? They're getting offensive. They get Victor Arvidsson from Nashville for literally 2 picks, and they had plenty of draft capital. So they weren't afraid to get rid of picks. But the other thing is you get Philip Deneau, you got Alex Iafallo, you got Quentin Byfield, you got Alex Turcotte. These are some young guys. They're on a trend of where they're trying to get better offensively. They re-sign Andreas Athanasiou. So I like what I was seeing with the LA Kings. Now, the question is, what are they going to do with goaltending? Because, Jonathan Quick is on the tail end of his career. He's not looking like the same Jonathan Quick we saw before. But you still have good names like Dustin Brown, Anji Kopitar, and of course, you have Drew Doughty. So the Kings are on the positive side. So I like what I saw with the Kings right now, and it's only going to get better. This is what's reshaping to get them back up on the map. Yeah, they couldn't get Grubauer because of cap space. Yeah, that's true. They couldn't. They really couldn't. Minnesota Wild. So they buy out Ryan Suter, and they also buy out one other player as well. So they relieve some cap space from there. The one thing that I do like is they got Dmitry Kulikov. They'll get at least a couple of some good options. Now they do lose Ian Cole, which I think kind of hits them slightly. But here's what's the biggest thing. Minnesota was on the upward trend. The reason why is because Cam Talbot was so good goaltending. And this is a guy Edmonton dumped, and he looked much better this year. So Cam Talbot was solid, won more games, but here's the other part. The question is going to be, where's Kirill Kaprizov really going to go? Is he going to take the massive contract to go back overseas into Russia, or is Minnesota going to give them a bigger contract to get him to stay? Because Kirill Kaprizov, Calder Trophy winner, unanimous, really shaped up this offense. Jared Spurgeon, I thought, did a really, really good job. But the defense with Eunice Brodin and Matt Dumba was solid. This is a scrappy team that I think you're going to see in the playoffs for the next couple of years. But my God, we finally have an identity for them. Wow. I mean, Minnesota did really, really impressive, and I think they're only going to get better from here. The Montreal Canadiens. Now, they made a ton of moves. They're 50-50 right now because Philip Deneau, they lose for 6 years to the LA Kings. Okay. But you have to think about the other names they got. They got David Savard, Mike Hoffman, Cedric Paquette, and they also get Jean-Sebastian D. So there's a couple options that Montreal has. But here's the other big hit. Carey Price and Shea Weber. Shea Weber, he might be calling it quits on his career because he's not the same. And, of course, he's been dealing with a lot of lower body issues. The other part, Carey Price, he has to go through surgery. And we don't know exactly if Montreal may be the same group, but you have an upward trend. Only the reason is because Nick Suzuki and Cole Caulfield are going to be the future goal scorers right there for this team. Now, you are going to end up, the question is, what are they going to do with Eric Gustafsson? And, of course, you're going to have to give up Eric Stahl and Tomas Tatar. You got to at least get something. But I think ultimately they are still on an upward trend. But the question of it is going to be, how is Carey Price really going to feel after this year? So that's my thought on them. Okay, the Nashville Predators, they did lose Pekka Rinne to retirement, which ultimately he's done his due diligence for a long, long time. They do sign Michael Granlund. They loved what they saw out of him as a center. But they do lose Eric Haula. But here's my thing about Nashville. You still got Matt Duchene, and you got Ryan Johansson. Johansson has not looked the same ever since he left Minnesota to go to Columbus to go to Nashville. Ryan Johansson is just not the same forward. And here's the other thing. You say Saros, I think, is a good goaltender. That's actually pretty solid. But I don't think you could put him in the same conversation as Andrei Vasilevsky, Marc-Andre Fleury, and a couple of these, and Philip Grubauer. I don't think you could put him in the same conversation. This is going to be a completely different look for Nashville. Now, they did lose Ryan Ellis. That's a big hit of their defense, but they still have captain Roman Josi. So Roman Josi has been getting better and better in his game. And the only thing they have to do is get aggressive on their power plays. They've been so flat with power plays. They are not the most aggressive offensive team. It's weird because you would think Nashville, with the forwards they have, they'd be scoring goals left and right. It's a big change for them, but I think that it's 50-50 for Nashville for me. Okay, New Jersey Devils is actually on an upward trend for me. This is where I'm going to explain it. Dougie Hamilton, they signed for 7 years on the contract. The defense is going to get better. And here's the other thing. They drafted Luke Hughes, the defenseman, to New Jersey, probably to help boost the morale for Jack Hughes to really be a better forward. But you still have a couple of really good players you could utilize. You still have Ryan Murray. The question's out on him. Now, they did lose Will Butcher, but you still got some picks for him in the end. This is going to be a completely different change here. Now, who knows goaltending-wise? Schneider and Blackwood. I think Blackwood could be forming better for this New Jersey group, but you're also looking at a PK Subban that finally started to go on the upward side. So I think New Jersey's kind of in an upward trend after you get Dougie Hamilton. This is going to be a little bit of a better group. Give it about a couple of years with this puppy. They're going to get better offensively. Okay, the New York Islanders. This is going to be a very interesting look for the Islanders. They lost Jordan Eberle to Seattle in that expansion draft. Now they still have solid pieces: JG Pageau, Brock Nelson, Josh Bailey. But it's going to be interesting to see how the rest of this looks. But I guarantee you, Barry Trotz knows what he's going to do with this team. However they're going to look at it, I mean, it's going to depend. New York is such a solid team. I cannot disregard them. I mean, you've got Ilya Sorokin, who I think is going to be a really good goaltender. You still have Semyon Varlamov. So they're solid at goaltending. But the question of it is defense or offense going to be the liability for the Islanders moving forward? So they're half and half for me. I would expect some sort of move from the Islanders, and we'll see where they're going to move. Okay, the New York Rangers. So I have the Rangers right now at a slight upward trend, and here's the reasons. They go and get Gerard Gallant, who is a aggressive offensive head coach, and they needed some serious juice in that building. Artemi Panarin, Mika Zibanejad, and Adam Fox are those guys that you're going to be really rallying around. Now, they did get Patrick Nemeth for 3 years at defense. They needed to fix that defense up. Now, they did lose Tony DeAngelo. I thought he put up some good numbers as both a two-way defenseman, but there are still some moves that the Rangers are going to need to make. But I like where they're going with this. I really do like where they're kind of moving forward with it, because they need to make some serious. They need to charge themselves up big time. They need to get better offensively and defensively. And the goaltending is questionable because you got Alexander Georgiev and you've also got Igor Shesterkin. So the Rangers, slight upward. I like the offensive aggression that at least Gallant is going to bring to the table. But there's still some more moves that need to be made. Okay, the Ottawa Senators. They're basically at a trend down. Now, they did get Michael DeZotto, but they lose Ryan Dzingel in the middle of that move. But they are acquiring more and more picks. So they're trying to get better with their future. This is the only reason there's slight downward trend, because there's still some moves that need to be made. And this is all part of their pact. This is all part of their long-term pact. They're going to get better and better as time goes, because Brady Tkachuk and a bunch of real good players, they're going to shape this up as best as they possibly could. They got to find a way. So I think you're going to see them acquire more picks. They're also going to get at least a little bit more space in the cap. So I would expect Ottawa to really make some serious moves in the middle of it in the coming days soon. What's going on, Caden? What's happening? All right, the Philadelphia Flyers. So this will sound interesting, but they made some really interesting moves. So they lose Jacob Rochik in a trade, but they did get Cam Atkinson. Now, I have them at a slight upward trend, and the only thing is that trade itself, they did get themselves a forward back in return. What's going on, Coach Dante? The other part, you'll get Keith Yandel for defense. Defense was an absolute must because Shane Goatsberry, he's gone. He's gone out to Arizona. They did bring in Martin Jones, at least as a backup goaltender for Carter Hart. They need to have somebody that's going to be solid. Martin Jones, it's a new look for him. Now, they do get a few other pieces in between it, but I still think with Travis Konechny, Sean Couturier, and Joel Farabee, and even Scott Lawton, you're still going to have at least some good pieces in between. But this is a team that's got to figure out their identity. I don't want this like hot and cold trend every year, because here's the thing. Claude Giroux has disappeared. Claude Giroux has just absolutely disappeared the last 2 seasons. I don't know what has happened with him, but I feel like they haven't given him a contract yet. He's still a free agent. So who knows what's going to happen with Claude Giroux in the next couple of weeks, but who knows? Oh, thank you, Coach Dante. I really do appreciate it. Thank you for subscribing to the Snake Sports Talk Show and also subscribing to the Spotlight Sports Network. Let's keep it going. We're on the road to 400 subscribers on the Snake Sports Talk Show, and we're also close to getting to at least 900 and hoping to get on our road to 1,000 subscribers. So keep the subscription going, keep the likes going. Really do appreciate it. But yeah, Philly's kind of in a slight upward trend. They're going to get better, but I still think they need to make some moves for their forwards, but they also got to get better on defense. All right, the Pittsburgh Penguins right now are kind of on a 50-50 for me. What's going on, Prince John? Now, they did acquire Brock McGinn. They needed to get some offense. They still do have Jason Zucker in the middle of their contract and still on that team. They also did extend Evan Rodriguez for 1 more year, but they also did lose Cody Ceci for defense to Edmonton. Now, granted, they do have Ryan Dumoulin, but the defense, I think, needs to get a little better. Now, Tristan Jarry is only getting better year after year. I know that this was kind of overwhelming for Tristan Jarry, and they didn't even end up starting him, but I think he's going to be primed up for a much better year this year. So it's a slight upward trend. Brock McGinn, good stuff. They needed to focus more on offense. Defense, I think, needs at least one more piece, and hopefully Tristan Jarry will be much better for next year. All right, the San Jose Sharks, they did get a few moves like Andrew Cogliano, but there's going to be a lot more that needs to be done. So it's a downward trend for me. They did, this is where they're rebuilding. They're not looking to be competitive anytime soon. They lost, head coaches. It's a different change. You still have Erik Karlsson for the defense and Brent Burns, but the question is, how long is Brent Burns really going to stay in San Jose? Eventually, he's going to look for a change of scenery. But offensively, Logan Couture, Tomas Hertl, and Evander Kane. That's really the offense you really got from there. But you're going to get some leadership with Andrew Cogliano, and hopefully this team will be at least a little better, but I have them at a downward trend for right now. Okay, the Seattle Kraken. People might not believe this, but I have them at an upward trend. They went and got themselves one of the best goaltenders right now in the league in Philip Grubauer. One of the best. They signed him for a 6-year contract. Jaden Schwartz now is signed for a 5-year deal. Seattle's not playing around. Ron Francis is not playing around. He's made some serious moves. We know this with the expansion draft. Be careful of Seattle this year. Mark Giordano for defense. They went defense first in the expansion draft. They got Chris Driedger, and they got even better with Philip Grubauer. Holy cow. I didn't see that coming. So my guess is they're a defensive specialist team with some serious firepower on offense with Jaden Schwartz, Jordan Eberle, and a couple others. But you've got leadership with Mark Giordano, and you've also got some youngsters at defense that are only going to get better. Vince Dunn. So Seattle's on an upward trend for me. Okay, the St. Louis Blues. The Blues, I think, are going to take at least a slight step back, but I have them at 50-50 right now, almost close to a slight downward trend. last year was not good for Jordan Bennington and at least for a couple other players. This was kind of terrible. And I was very surprised how the outcome, and they get swept by Colorado. They got outplayed by Colorado. Wow. I mean, a team that picked up Torrey Krug. Now, they still got some good offensive players. The question is, what's the status on Vladimir Tarasenko? Are they moving him or are they keeping him? My guess is I don't think they're really going to ship him off anywhere because the 3 shoulder surgeries he's had, that's tough. Now, they did lose Mike Hoffman and Jaden Schwartz. We know that that's a huge hit, but you still have Ryan O'Reilly. You still have David Perron. You still have some offensive players, but it's not going to be this simple. Defense, I'm sure, is going to refocus and reshape for this next up-and-coming season, but hopefully you're going to see a bounce back for Jordan Bennington for next year. Tampa Bay Lightning right now is half and half. Now, they did have to get rid of a lot of players to keep themselves within the cap. They did lose Blake Coleman. They lost David Savard. They did lose Luke Shen and losing a couple other pieces. But they did, in fact, scrap up a few pieces here. Zach Bogosian, Pierre-Edouard Bellemare, Brian Elliott, and a few. So, but they also did extend Braden Point. He is going to be the focal point of the future for the Tampa Bay Lightning. They're not getting rid of him. He's been absolutely solid, a massive contract, and a much deserved. Braden Point's been solid regular and postseason. Him, Steven Stamkos, and Nikita Kucherov, that's your solid line right there for the next few years. They did lose Yanni Gourde to Seattle, which was a big piece. Andres Palat, we know that this is going to be a different look Tampa Bay Lightning, but they're 50-50 because they're still solid. They still picked up some good pieces to kind of keep themselves stable. So I don't see an upward or downward trend yet. Okay, the Toronto Maple Leafs. The Toronto Maple Leafs right now, I'm kind of curious to see where this sits. But they did get Peter Mrazek as goaltending depth for him and Jack Campbell. They lost Nick Foligno and Zach Hyman. I don't know how you recover from that, but you still have a couple of solid players. But the problem of it is Mitch Marner really going to show up? Mitch Marner's more of a seasonal guy. He's not a postseason guy. And until they figure that out, Austin Matthews has to ride along through the ship, but the goaltending's a little better. I think defensively with Jake Muzzin, they got to get a little better with the defense, but offense has got to show up. You cannot have all of these. You can't have all of these like this veteran leadership and not do something about this. Mike, good Lord, this is crazy. So I truly think they're going to do something about it with offense. Now, they did get David Kemp for 2 years, but I have them right now, slight upward trend, but give me something a little bit better to show for it. Okay, the Vancouver Canucks. Now, they did up the defense. Travis Hamonic re-signs for 2 years. Tucker Pullman from Winnipeg. That's a solid pickup because Nate Schmidt gets shipped off to Winnipeg, but they did pick up a lot of really good guys. Luke Shen, solid defense. Vancouver is actually going to look a little better defensively, so I have a slight trend up. Now, Brock Besser and Bo Horvat in the offense needs to get better, but they do have a couple options. They have a couple of options that they could look for, but you did lose Braden Holtby. Either way, you still have Thatcher Demko. I think they're still going to be okay for right now, but it's a slight trend up. And they did get Jaroslav Halleck. So they got a goaltending and defensive upgrade. So I think Vancouver's right there at the upward trend, but let's see where it ends up. Vegas Golden Knights right now is in an upward trend, and this is not for anything. Now, the biggest loss was Marc-Andre Fleury. Yes, I understand. But you still have Robin Lehner for the next couple of years. But here's the other thing. They have this kid Thompson in the minor leagues who was the minor league goaltender of the year. They're grooming him up for the possibility of getting him into the NHL, getting some starts, and see where he goes from there. Now, they did lose, obviously, Fleury and Tomasz Nosek, but they do re-sign Patrick Brown, Cage Quinney, and they also did re-sign Matthias Janmark. But the other biggest thing, they re-signed Alec Martinez. That defense is set. They needed him because with him and Alex Pietrangelo, Shea Theodore, and Brady McNabb, this is going to look a little better. Now, the offense, I don't know what else is up in the works. The offense needs to get better because they need to have a better showing than what last year gave them. After the playoffs and after that embarrassment with the Montreal Canadiens, they need to get better. Now, they did also pick up Laurent Brossoit for goaltending for backup. I think it's reasonable. He's a good, serviceable goaltender, but Vegas is still on the upward trend. Let's see what happens from there. Okay, the Washington Capitals. Now, this is kind of interesting for me. I think they're in a slight downward trend. Now, they do re-sign Alex Ovechkin to a 5-year deal, but he's going to retire a Washington Capital. That's no doubt from there. Now, they lose Henrik Lundqvist, Craig Anderson, but they did lose Vital. They did end up losing another young goaltender, but they actually gained him back from a trade. So they do have goaltending. Okay, I was kind of worried about that. That's why it's like slight downward trend. Now, they did lose Brendan Dillon on a trade to Winnipeg, but you still have John Carlson. You still have a couple solid pieces. Now, the question is, do you trade Evgeny Kuznetsov for picks or another solid player? Offense, is going to be very different. It's going to be very, very different. But again, they're in slight downward, but Washington's still staying competitive. Okay, the Winnipeg Jets. This is interesting for me, but they are kind of on the upward trend. They got Brendan Dillon from the Washington Capitals. They also ended up getting a couple of other good solid pieces. Now, Connor Hellebuck, we know, is a solid goaltender, and he lost his backup goaltender, Laurent Brossoit. But they do keep Eric Comrie. I think he's basically going to be the backup goaltender, serviceable. But Mark Scheifele, Kyle Connor, Nikolai Ehlers, and Pierre-Luc Dubois. Some solid offensive players, and they actually took me by surprise last year. So it's only going to get better from here. They love their defense. They're a defensive specialist team. But offensively, let's see what happens. But I do have them at a slight upward trend. That's where I look at within Winnipeg. After just sweeping the Edmonton Oilers in the playoffs, I mean, they're still a solid team. Like, I could consider them to be scrappy like Minnesota. I could consider them to be a little bit better than Edmonton. So this will be interesting for me. So, yeah, that's where I have an upward and downward trend from all of those teams. And you can go back and see here at the end of this episode and see what you think. Like, comment. I mean, look, I look at some of these teams, and I know for a fact Carolina's on the downfall. Boston, what are they doing with their goaltenders? They're on a downward for me. I don't even know who's goaltending for Boston at all. Buffalo, you already know, is an obvious downfall. Edmonton right now is on the downward trend, and the only reason is because look, you made a lot of real good decisions with as far as those moves, but you extend Mike Smith, really? I don't understand this. I truly don't understand this. So, but there are some teams on the uprise. Detroit is going to win more games than they did last year. They're going to get better. They are not going to be the competitive team in the next 2-3 years yet, because you got Alex Nedeljkovic as your young goaltender that they're going to build with Dylan Larkin, and the offense is a little better with Zadina and also with Fapula. So they're on an upward trend. They're going to get better from here. Winnipeg is in a slight upward trend. They get more defensemen. They get Brandon Dillon from Washington. It was a big time trade. Tampa Bay is still staying solid. Vegas right now is still on an upward trend because they do have those pieces. They kept Alec Martinez. Losing Fleury was tough, but they do have Robin Leonard, who's a solid goaltender. They pick up Laurent Brossoit and a couple others. So I understand what the trend that they're going with, but again, I just wish the PR department would have handled things better. Colorado right now, I don't know what to think of them. They're kind of half and half for me because you still have a solid offensive core, but is Darcy Kemper really the answer? I don't know. And Seattle, for them just being a first-year expansion team, Ron Francis is impressing me. Defense is solid. They get even better with their goaltending with Philip Grubauer. Surprisingly, I didn't see that one coming. That was an absolute curveball. But Seattle's going to look a little tougher. I wouldn't be surprised if they competed in the top 3 of the Pacific Division. I wouldn't be. Because, look, Edmonton, you had me at the time, but losing Adam Larson, losing Caleb Jones, losing Ethan Bear, I don't know. I don't know what you do with this. I don't know how you're going to really react with this. Zach Hyman, solid center. And you also have Tyler Ennis and a couple others to really match up with Draisaitl, Nugent Hopkins, and with Connor McDavid. But I'm telling you, this goaltending, that was a lightning in the bottle year for Mike Smith. He's not going to have this again. I promise you he's not going to have this again. But like I said, these upwards, downwards trends, comment, tell me what you thought about them, because I truly think these are solid. I think these are reasonable. A lot of these teams are going to get better. Minnesota, Detroit, Vegas, Seattle. There are a bunch of teams right now that are on the upward rise, and some that are staying solid, like Colorado, Tampa Bay, but downwards, Carolina, Boston, surprisingly, and yeah, I don't know. This is crazy to me, but I've seen some of these teams surprisingly be on the downward trend, and you would think they would have thought a lot better about this, but who knows? We're going to take a slight break, but when we do come back, my best for last in the NFL as promised, with the AFC South predictions. These I think are really, really solid, and I'm going to explain to you exactly all of these coming up next here. If you guys are waiting, what are you guys waiting for? Haven't you guys got any gear to rep up? You guys love the Spotlight Sports Network and, of course, the Snake Sports Talk Show. What are you waiting for? But we do have a place for it. It's the SpotlightSportsNetwork.com. Look up onto the merchandise section, powered by Spreadshirt. We got hats, hoodies, T-shirts, and so much more to get you guys kind of geared up. We know that the end of the summer is going to be coming up soon, and you guys are going to be wanting to bundle up again for the fall. We do have comfortable hoodies there, super, super comfy, really, really good, and of course, reps your favorite network, reps your favorite show on the network. So definitely go online to SpotlightSportsNetwork.com, merchandise section powered by Spreadshirt.
always a Raider, bruh. Shit simple as that. You look silver and black. Lot of bread invested in that O-line. Car insurance cost an arm and a leg to reach that goal line. It's go time.
I feel like the grass is green, and everything I do is unseen. But I know that's just in my mind. I know everything is just in my mind. Do you really want to be famous? Do you really want to be a superstar? Do you really want to get dangerous? Do you even know where the groupies are? Bitches out here be-
Welcome to Hammer's house. Welcome to the My City, My Game pod show featuring Raider J77, your place for all things Raiders and all things Trailblazers. Brought to you by the Spotlight Sports Network. Make sure you like, subscribe, and hit the bell for notifications. Now let's go.
First and foremost, everybody, I really do appreciate every single one of you guys being here on tonight's show. Wow, I mean, free agent frenzy absolutely drained me out. I mean, I was looking at every single free agent, signing, trade, all of it. I was very impressed with a lot of different moves, but this was an absolute like almost earthquake-like shakeup. Wow. I didn't expect that. I didn't expect that today. And they all came out at once. But I was very impressed with every single move. And so now we're shifting over to the NFL as my best for last that I love to do. And as I've done before, I'm giving you guys a gist of my season prediction. Because how I'm really looking at this, and it's really interesting. A lot of these teams that I've already done the AFC East, and I've also done the NFC North. So now I'm moving into the AFC South. And all it is it's just a gist of all these teams. I will not have exactly I will not have exactly like their actual record set yet, but these are just kind of the teams that I know for a fact what they'll finish within the division. So we're focusing on the AFC South. This is such a mediocre division. We know this through and through. First of all, the Deshaun Watson thing, that Jacksonville, Urban Meyer, and Trevor Lawrence, Tennessee getting Julio Jones. But again, they got some secondary issues. So I'm not sure. And then the Colts getting Carson Wentz. So this is going to be a very, very interesting division to really watch out for this year. So here we go. We're going to start with our best for last AFC South prediction. Here we go. So number 4, who I have finishing last, is going to be the Houston Texans. Listen, there's a reason I have the Texans here in this position. First of all, Deshaun Watson, are you trading him? Obviously, he's showing up into camp, but now they put him in the open books to trade him, and they want 5 first-round picks for him. this Texans organization has just completely obliterated and ruined the whole process. J.J. Watt leaves. He goes to Arizona on a contract. You'll lose Will Fuller. You'll lose DeAndre Hopkins the year before, and you lost a bunch of players. And then you're filling in the voids with some of these small end players that I just don't think Deshaun Watson's really going to have any time to throw, first off, because outside of Laramie Tunsil, you didn't really fix the offensive line. And lots of these players are either injury prone, they underachieve. I don't know what the Texans are really doing. So I have them sitting up at 4th. This whole thing's going to blow up. Eventually, if Deshaun leaves, clearly they're not moving away from that last place spot. Okay, number 3, the Jacksonville Jaguars. So here's why I have Jacksonville right now at number 3, because give them about 2-3 years. What Urban Meyer's trying to do is they've got a lot of offensive players. Trevor Lawrence at the helm as quarterback, Travis Etienne, James Robinson. They've got a couple of really good wide receivers, and then not to mention a good tight end. So they're going to get offensive. This is a really good trend for me for the Jaguars. But now the question is the defense. I think the defense right now is not ready. So the point is to get offensive, score points, and then we'll figure out the defense as time rolls on. I think this is an interesting plan for Urban Meyer, but I do like where the Jacksonville Jaguars are going to kind of sit themselves. They're not going to be as competitive yet. Give this thing about 2-3 years. It's going to get better from there. Number 2, the Tennessee Titans. Let me explain to you why that they're going to finish second in this division. Okay, it's not the Julio Jones trade. First of all, that is an upgrade for their offense with him, A.J. Brown, and Derrick Henry. But they lost a little bit of their offensive line. Now, Ryan Tannehill might have his hands full, but he's still going to be a solid quarterback. The way that Mike Vrabel's got this worked, I mean, he really trusts Tannehill. The second he came into Tennessee, it's worked out beautifully. Now, the questions that remain, because I know they picked up Bud Dupree in free agency, and they finally have a pass rusher because they didn't have one last year. The question is the tight end position going to be solid after Johnny Smith left? Because we know that Arthur Smith is out there in Atlanta and is big on tight ends. That's going to be a change. Don't know if Tennessee might be the same offensive structured team, but also you got to talk about a secondary outside of Kevin Byard that I don't even know of any of those names that are solid enough. They took a risk at Caleb Farley. And who knows if he'll be healthy enough to start for this secondary. So the Titans right now are going to have their hands full with as far as the passing game goes. Because when you're facing teams like the Chargers, or you're facing teams like Indianapolis, or better yet, the Jags, or even, Baltimore, which they beat them in the playoffs. Tennessee is still going to be a solid team. But when you come to those questions in the end, something's got to give. But I do think the Titans will still be a solid team, but I don't see them being absolutely significant as some people think. All right, and finally, the division winners, who I have at number 1, is the Indianapolis Colts. I don't understand this constant low ball on Carson Wentz. Why? What evidence do you have to prove that Carson Wentz is not going to be much better with the Colts than he was with the Eagles? Listen, he's got something to prove. And who better to play next to than Frank Reich? Okay, his career is going to be reshaped and reformed. He's got a better offensive line. You've got Michael Pittman Jr., and you also have T.Y. Hilton. You've also got Zach Pascal, and you got a run game with Nyheim Hines and Jonathan Taylor. Chris Ballard is putting this whole thing together. And by the way, defensively, Darius Leonard, Bobby Okereke, DeForest Buckner. Now, the question is the secondary, but I do think the secondary will still be solid. The Colts are going to be a much stronger and better team because they've got the quarterback. And think about this. why you think Carson Wentz is like his year is going to bounce back? People don't even believe in that. Whatever happened with Phillip Rivers after he left the Chargers? Colts made it to the playoffs. Offensive course started to catch fire. So my thing is Frank Reich knows exactly how to redevelop these quarterbacks. And I'm sure with the relationship with Carson Wentz is going to help. This is not something where Carson Wentz is going to struggle just because you watched how they worked in Philly. First of all, Philadelphia's offensive line was injured. They were all on the injured list. And then all the receivers were injured outside of J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, outside of Jalen Reagor, outside of Travis Fulgham. So what the hell would you want him to do? I think Carson Wentz, his career is going to be revived. It's going to be reshaped. And I wouldn't be surprised if he was comeback player of the year. I don't. Because after this whole thing with Philadelphia, that's what it's there to prove. And he's not the only quarterback that has to prove that. Sam Darnold's another one in Carolina that has to prove that to the Jets, that Adam Gase was the problem. So, I don't understand. I don't understand this low ball. So, like I said, I have the Texans, Jags, Titans, and Colts. I don't understand this low ball with Carson Wentz. Are there still people still running around with this Nick Foles is better than Carson Wentz crap? Give me a break. Like, keep drinking your beer, dude. Stop. Carson Wentz is going to be just fine. And with Frank Reich there as head coach and his mentor, it's going to be even better. Chris Ballard is a smart enough general manager. He knows what he's doing with this. So, come on. Let's be honest and reasonable about this. It's not going to be a downward spiral for the Colts. They're going to be just fine. They got their quarterback. They've got an offensive line that's healthy, that's going to give Carson Wentz plenty of time to throw, and he's got an offense. So they're going to score points. They're going to score touchdowns. This is not an issue for the Colts right now. I don't understand this. The Colts are going to be the AFC South champions. The Titans, surprisingly, may be a playoff team getting to the wild card, maybe. But again, I have to see how that secondary plays on that defense. Jags are going to be competitive the next 2-3 years once Urban Meyer has this whole platform set. But Trevor Lawrence is at the top of the helm. I think he's going to be really, really good. And then Houston, they got serious problems. They have problems everywhere. And I don't know what's going to be happening with Deshaun Watson in the coming days. All right, guys, that's going to do it for me here on the Snake Sports Talk Show. I really do appreciate all of you guys here. Thank you so much for your guys' subscriptions, your likes, and so much more. And I encourage that you guys continue to like, subscribe, hit the bell button for all latest notifications. What a week. And it's only getting better for that. We're not even close to Friday yet. We're not even close to the end of the week. We got Thursday, which I call Friday Eve. Then you got Friday. So, again, lots and lots of moves are going to be happening. And then when you got the baseball's trade deadline. That's another one that's going to be a complete mind wipe. So I got to get prepared for that. But I appreciate every single one of you guys joining me here, and we will see you guys all next Monday. Take care of yourselves. Have a great week, and we will see you guys next Monday. Take care.